Hello folks, welcome to a subsidiary minus Ruth version of Biker Elf Squirrel. I'm out for a bit of a shakedown today. I am planning to go to Scotland in a couple of weeks' time with Mike and have a bit of a repeat of the tour that Mike, Ben and I did last year, albeit it won't be a complete repeat because we're going to take a different route. We're going to basically go around anti-clockwise rather than clockwise and not really stick to the NC 500 so much, but just do some of the really good roads and hopefully get a night's sort of camping in there somewhere as well. So as I said, I'm out for a bit of a shakedown, basically because this bike is now 8 years old and it's due for a big service, and quite frankly, I'm perfectly capable of doing that myself, to the extent that, you know, as long as I don't need any specialist tools. And I'm incrementally doing the service elements, and I'll be going over the score and doing a few things that aren't service elements, but in my opinion need doing. So 8 years old, coming up for, it hasn't quite got 40,000 miles, but it's coming up for it. And I'm going to be changing the brake lines. I'm going to put the brake discs back to OEM. I've already bought those, the OEM Brembo discs, and pads on the front. Back pads were changed not that long ago, and it is an OEM disc on the back. And so, yeah, a little bit of a shakedown because I've recently changed the air filter and oil filter, that kind of stuff, and I'm just incrementally working through various different service elements. So a bit of a shakedown just to make sure that everything is as I want it to be and the bike is running the way I want it to run ahead of going to Scotland for a week. So that's basically the only reason I'm out. And the other thing is, obviously I'm planning to film when we go up to Scotland, and so I'm testing a couple of different camera angles and testing some modifications I've made to the way I mount our DJI wireless mics to the inside of our helmets, because what was happening historically was I had got to the point where I was gluing a high power magnet onto the inside of the chin piece of these helmets, just on the inside of here, and it worked fine for a while. I was gluing it on with araldite. It worked fine for a while, and then eventually the araldite would get brittle, and because the magnets were quite strong, occasionally you just pull the microphone off and the magnet mount would come with it, and then, you know, there's nothing you could do there. So what I've done now is I have, instead of gluing the magnet, I have stuck the magnet to the inside of the helmet with VHB tape, which is a 3M tape. It's really sticky, holds very well. And then on top of that, because the VHB tape has a bit of a foam attached to it, on top of that I have then stuck another layer of VHB tape, because that serves two purposes. One, it's an additional layer of holding the microphone on, and the other purpose it serves is it gives a little bit of distance between the effect of the magnet and the DJI mic, which means that the magnetic effect is not so strong, but it's perfectly strong enough to keep the microphone in place. So that's what I'm trialing at the moment, that little microphone mod for helmets, and that seems to be working, but as I say, I've not really used it very much, so it's a bit of a shakedown for my helmet, just to see that that's going to work. And the other reason is to test a couple of things to do with the GoPros. So this GoPro is working without a battery, and it's just directly hardwired into the bike's power. So there's a converter from 12 volt to 5 volt DC, and it runs through a USB cable into the sort of largely weatherproof side entry door onto the GoPro, and you have to kind of tweak the settings and download a different profile for your GoPro for it to do that, which I hadn't done last year. I'd assumed that was going to work, and what happened was when the GoPro was off, that power source would charge it, but when it was on, it would run the battery down and it wouldn't take any power from the bike. So I needed to do a bit of a software modification on the GoPro done that now, and now it's running completely without a battery. So in high bit rate, I'm going to get about 2 hours and 24 minutes of footage on a 128 gig micro SD card with no battery usage. And then that gives me 4 batteries for this one, unless I work out some other way of doing that, but I think that's just going to be a faff. But I don't want cables dragging everywhere. So yeah, so giving that a bit of a test. The other thing I'm going to test in a minute is I'm going to take the max lens mod off of this GoPro and put it onto the helmet to see what sort of view that gives me. Never done that before. I haven't done it with Ruth either, so I'm just going to stop in a minute and swap those over and see what sort of different view that gives me. Of course, that would have helped if I'd taken off in first gear, not second. I was having all sorts of problems last year when I toured Scotland with this bike. It seemed to be only firing on 2 cylinders for a bit, and then it was just running really crappily towards the end of the trip. And that seems to have been resolved by a number of factors: oil change, filter change, doing various other bits of service work, and the biggest change that made the most immediate difference was a new battery. So it was original battery in this bike, and although it had been an Optimate and had been, staying in reasonable condition, I always used to be quite religious about sticking it on the Optimate. But when your battery gets to sort of 7 years old, it doesn't matter how fully charged it is when you fire it up straight away. It's not holding charge, and I think that was causing all sorts of issues with the ECU because it just wasn't getting the right voltage through. So I swapped it out for a new lithium-ion battery, which is a bit lighter. It was expensive, but it's a bit lighter, and yeah, I don't have any of those problems now. So I was getting issues with trying to accelerate when the bike was, working hard. So either going up a hill in a higher gear or accelerating firmly from a higher gear at low speed, and it was sort of stuttering and not really misfiring, but it wasn't running properly well. And now all those elements have been resolved completely. So yeah, just having a bit of a shakedown, make sure that everything's as I would want it to be in advance of going to Scotland. That's the only reason I'm out, really. I'm going to stop a second, swap these cameras over. But yeah, footage of a trip to Scotland will come at some point in the future, but I haven't even been yet, so it'll be a while. And then, now that the weather's starting to warm up, we'll get Ruth out more often. I'm just going to pull over here and put my suspension back into road mode because it was in off-road, and swap cameras around, so I'll see you in a minute. This bike is running really well. Really well. Very happy with it. I've had a few other bits of work done to the bike. Well, that's not true, I haven't had them done to the bike. I took my rear rack off, the pannier rack off this bike. It was starting to get quite rusty in places, and I took it all off, completely dismantled it, and cleaned it all up, and then sent it off to get, well, I didn't send it off, I took it off to a company, Sandy Powder Coating, who did a fantastic job of powder coating the whole thing matte black. Looks awesome. So they shot blasted it and powder coated it, and it looks like new, because it was getting pretty scruffy, especially the bit that runs the support bar that runs between the pannier racks to the rear of the back tyre, up, sort of in front of the number plate. That's obviously getting hit with grit and small stones on a regular basis, and that's where it was trying to rust. So that should do me another 8 years now, I would have thought, without having to do anything else. But yeah, working very well. And having done that, having powder coated a few of those bits, yeah, I'm gonna get a few more bits done. So the grab rails at the back and the actual supports to hold the pannier rack, I'm probably going to get them done as well. lower engine bars, they've had a few scuffs. They could do with shock blasting and powder coating. I've got heat upper engine bars, which I haven't got on the bike at the moment because, well, essentially because I dropped the bike on them and they bent out of shape a bit, and I took them off ostensibly with the idea of putting the mounting points in a vise and bending them back into shape, because they were sort of out of shape of the bike. So you know, there's a big gap at one side between the bars and the frame, and a very small gap at the other side, obviously the side I dropped it on. And so I'm going to bend them back into shape, and then I'll get shock blasted and powder coated as well. And there's a few other bits and pieces, fasteners, you know, screws, nuts, bolts, that kind of stuff. Incrementally, every time I do another piece of work on some part of the bike, I swap all the OEM bolts that I can. You can't always get exactly the same profiles, but I swap all the OEM bolts that I can for A4 marine grade stainless steel, which is not the original spec on this bike. You tend to find that a lot of the fasteners are just, they're coated. You know, they've got a coating on them, you know, electroplated or something. And as soon as you actually try and repeatedly clean them or try and polish them up, what you're effectively doing is removing that coating, and then they just rust. So yeah, there's a few tweaks here and there that need to be done with fasteners, etc. But this bike, as it stands, there's nothing wrong with it, and I love it. There's nothing wrong with this bike. So it's a 2016 Triumph Tiger Explorer XCa, and it came with absolutely every possible available option on it. I bought it brand new straight out of the showroom in April 2016, and it's had a few little issues here and there, but it's never really missed a beat. You know, just the other week there when I was out with Ruth, test riding that BMW R1300 GS, I was thinking, is it time to change? And it really isn't. I can't justify it. This bike's awesome. There's nothing wrong with it. It's looking a little bit tatty and it needs a little bit of TLC, but there's nothing wrong with it. I still love it. Yeah, it's a big heavy bike. Are modern bikes a little lighter? Yeah, they probably are. I mean, when I put the top bars back on this, not the last time I had it MOT, but the time before that, with the top bars on as well, the last time it was MOT'd with the top bars on, it was 293 kilograms. That's a heavy bike. Now, I don't know what that is in pounds. I'll put it on the screen for anybody watching in the States, but it's a heavy bike. And you know, I was kind of debating, should I change for a lighter bike, principally because I'm getting on a bit, and you know, it does take a bit of effort to kind of hold this thing around, especially when it's stationary, moving it around the garage. But actually, I've decided I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is get fitter. then I can haul it around without any problems. Because actually, I love this bike. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't owe any money on it, and I don't grudge spending, you know, a few £100 here and there, because it's still ultimately significantly cheaper than spending, you know, hundreds of pounds a month on a PCP or a hire purchase plan for a new bike. And there's nothing wrong with this one. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be in the new market for a new bike. I see that. However, there's not a need to change this bike. But is there a want to change this bike? I'm not sure I would change it for an R1300 GS. That thing didn't fire my rockets in the way I was expecting it to. I mean, it was very nice, but there was some stuff about it I wasn't really that fussed about. I didn't actually like the engine note. It sounded really agricultural. But I think what I might do is test ride a few different bikes. I'm going to kind of go around and sort of pre-test some stuff that I think Ruth might be interested in, to see what I think about it. And I'm also going to sort of test ride some of the new bikes that possibly might be a replacement for this. But there's not many, to be fair, because I use this bike as my main mode of transport. I very rarely drive the car anymore, and it's my main mode of commuting up and down to work. Now I don't go to work every day of the week. I mean, I work every day of the week, but I don't, well, not the weekends obviously, but I don't go to work every day of the week. Since the pandemic, everything's a bit more flexible, and I go to the office sort of 1-2 days a week, depending on business need and, you know, whether I want to or not, to be fair, because it is quite nice to actually go and see your colleagues face to face occasionally. So it does a fair few miles on its commute. You know, it's the better part of 200 miles from where we live in top end of Northamptonshire to where I work, which is in the centre of Reading. So the shaft drive is quite an important bit for me, because I don't want to be changing chains and sprockets every, well, I was I think about 18,000 miles I had to change and sprockets when I had a Tiger 1050. That was before it was a Tiger 1050 Sport, so not the single-sided swing arm version, but that was the bike I had before this one. Yeah, I'd rather not be bothered with the chain maintenance, to be fair. So shaft drive would be good. Now when you're looking at shaft drive, that gives you very limited options, so we'll see. But anyway, that probably wraps it up for today. I'm just having a waffle really, because I'm having a bit of a shakedown and testing the bike out in advance of trip in a couple of weeks time. I've still got to change the front discs and pads before then, because those EBC discs are rubbish. But anyway, other than that, I've got that to do, and then there's not much really I need to do before I go away. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I just thought I'd come out and have a chat, let you know we're still here, although Madam's at work today, so that's why she's not here. But as the weather warms up, there's more likelihood she'll be out more often. So thanks for putting up with this ramble. If you don't mind seeing me on my own, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. Just gives us an indication really, because in the back of my head I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of you who are subscribed to Ruth's channel, and it is Ruth's channel really, you're not coming to see me really. So if you're happy enough to see the occasional video from me, then great, give us a thumbs up. And if you like the sort of stuff that Ruth and I are doing on the channel, then think about subscribing. You get notified when another video comes out, which I accept have been quite sporadic of late. So yeah, anyway, thanks for that, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.